When asked about whether or not the Clippers wanted him back, he said, apparently not if I'm on the other side, so it is what it is, really. Jalen, what do you think about him just coming out and saying that the Clippers didn't really want him back?
I'm going to keep it 1,000. He ruined some of his value by playing poorly in the playoffs. You're going to see a lot of people getting big deals this offseason. The reason why he didn't get a long-term deal is because he was the defensive liability that the Joker continued to take advantage of to the point where they had to take him out of the game. Of course, if the Clippers would have stepped up and signed him to a big deal, or if Charlotte would have gave him a big deal, or if any team in the league would have gave him a big deal, guess what? He would have signed with that team. He signed with the Lakers because they were offering a 2-year deal, an opportunity to win a championship, and he hopes to replay his value as somebody that won Sixth Man of the Year.
With the Lakers adding Trez, and they had Schroeder, and they had Matthews, Gasol, it really feels like they upgraded, they got better. And you remember last year before the season, we were talking about the Lakers and the Clippers being neck and neck, but when you look at what the Clippers did, it doesn't feel like they're keeping pace. Take a look at what they did, Jalen.
Well, it's not just the Clippers, it's the rest of the league, Jacoby. And you got to look at it from a standpoint almost like a real estate transaction. The Los Angeles Lakers are a storied brand and a franchise that over the history of their team, if you look at some of the all-time great players like Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Shaquille O'Neal, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, none of those guys were drafted by the Lakers. They went to Los Angeles because, number one, it's a terrific franchise, but also because they wanted to be in LA. It's just going to be more attractive than other places across the league. So for the Clippers, who plays in their building, eventually will get their own. They also had a really good offseason, Jacoby. They still have Kawhi and PG and Lou Will. Okay? They did a terrific job of adding Ty Lue as their head coach, re-signing Morris. The Clippers are the second best team in the Western Conference. It's just the Lakers are playing chess right now where everybody else is playing checkers, and LeBron James is doing a terrific job of making it unfair for everybody else to compete.
Well, two things. The one thing that the Lakers and the Clippers have in common is they both have players from the Oklahoma City Thunder. Obviously, Paul George with the Clippers, and now Dennis Schroeder with the Lakers. Jalen, when you look at all of the players that the Thunder have acquiesced, coached up, and then lost, what do you think about their strategy this offseason?
You remember when Philly was talking about trust the process? In theory, that's exactly what the Oklahoma City Thunder are doing. It's just nobody's giving it to a label to it. But here's what I want to make sure I point out. All of those draft picks, and Sam Presti is one of the best general managers in the game. The Oklahoma City Thunder are cost-cutting, if you ask me. Because if you look at over the last decade, they're not going to draft players better than Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Victor Oladipo, Paul George, Steven Adams, Dennis Schroeder. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. They've been the best farm system that the NBA has seen. It's like, okay, Phoenix, we don't mind helping you out. We'll send you Chris Paul after he helped lead us to the playoffs. Wouldn't most teams be trying to keep SGA and Schrader together? But no, they're going to give up Schrader and trade him to the defending world champion. Didn't Danilo Gallinari just get a big deal with the Atlanta Hawks to help them out? Didn't Steven Adams just go to New Orleans to help them out? So if you're an Oklahoma City fan, you're really excited on paper that you got so many picks, but in theory, they ain't trying to win, dog. They cost cutting. They cost cutting.
They are. They absolutely are. Dennis Schroeder is now on the Lakers, and I used to call him Schrader as well, but I think he changed it. But he did like a Robinson thing on us halfway through his career. Now, Jalen, there's another interesting report from the NBA, and that is not just that John Wall no longer wants to be with the Wizards, but the GM, Tommy Shepard, says we have absolutely no plans on trading Wall. What do you think about the GM coming out and straight up saying he can ask all he wants, but that doesn't mean that we have to trade him?
I think this offseason for John Wall, when you've seen as many videos of him playing ball as in undisclosed locations in Brooklyn, it makes the organization look down at its pay salary structure and say, do we want to build around him basically after he's returning from the injury that he's returning after? And while still a talented player, on paper, you got to look at some of the deals that you're being offered. And Russell Westbrook was one of the names that was thrown out there. And for the Houston Rockets, they wanted more in return than just John Wall. If they were going to give up Russell Westbrook, this is a deal that I wouldn't be surprised, Jacoby, if it got revisited. Because for the Washington Wizards, they've decided they're going to build around Bradley Beal. They just gave Bertans a big deal. And so for that franchise, it's going to be interesting to see if Wall starts the season with them or he ends up elsewhere.
Absolutely. I think that Westbrook to Wall trade, it just makes so much sense. They're always talking about trading James Harden. Let's keep the scoring champion. Let's keep the former MVP scoring champion. And let's build around him, and let's get rid of Westbrook, who's definitely more of a problem than James Harden was when it came to their production, especially in the bubble. Now, Jalen, we also have some news from the Celtics. They have extended Jason Tatum, gave him $195 million. They've made some other moves that you can take a look at. What do you think about what the Celtics have done this offseason in their competition in the East?
I think something that I've acknowledged over the last year or so, while Danny Ainge is a terrific GM, he had a chance to cash his chips in the middle of the table, and he overplayed his hand. Of course, Jason Tatum is an all-NBA player that you want to give a max deal to, and Jaylen Brown's an all-NBA player, also a lockdown defender. But when you start losing Al Horford, Kyrie Irving, and Gordon Hayward for no assets in return, now you start to look back at the journey and like, wait a minute, they were in play for Anthony Davis, and what happened? They were in play for Kawhi Leonard, and what happened? And so now who's going to be their starting bigs? When you look at their team, Tristan Thompson, is he going to be the guy that's closing games for the Celtics this year? That is not what you anticipate as they were accumulating assets over the last handful of years, and you were building out the Boston Celtics starting team and their bench.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.